Every bad idea starts the same way, with one person saying, "Wait, hear me out," like that has ever led anywhere good. For most people, the brain steps in and pulls the emergency brake. The 10 people in this video apparently cut that brake line themselves. What follows is a beautiful, idiotic timeline of confidence outrunning intelligence by a truly impressive margin. Story 1. The toy gun robber who lost to a broom. Otto was the kind of man who looked at a life of bad decisions and thought, crime might be the upgrade. Not smart crime, not serious crime, just broke man with crafts crime. Because when Otto decided to rob a convenience store, his weapon of choice was not a real gun. It was a toy water pistol, a children's squirt gun. And because his brain was running on pure discount villain energy, he spray painted it black and decided that was good enough. In his mind, he had transformed a pool party toy into fear itself. That is not criminal planning. That is arts and crafts with delusions. So in he goes, ski mask on, fake gun out, heart pounding. He stomps up to the counter and yells, "Give me the money!" Now, in Otto's fantasy, this is the part where the cashier panics and starts emptying the register. Instead, she looked at him, looked at the gun, then gave him the exact expression people use when they realize the universe is officially out of ideas. Because she could see the plastic seam, she could see the little water nozzle, she could probably still smell the spray paint on his whole fake career. And instead of fear, she grabbed a broom. A broom. That's what kills me about this story. Otto did not lose to police. He did not lose to security. He lost to basic housekeeping energy. And the second she came around the counter swinging, his whole gangster fantasy evaporated. Suddenly, he wasn't a robber anymore. He was just a grown man in a ski mask being chased out of a store by an annoyed woman with cleaning supplies. That is not a heist. That is a cartoon for unemployed adults. So Otto bolts into the street, panic running like a man whose dignity has fully left the building. He needs a hiding spot, fast. And then he sees it, a big metal clothing donation bin. To normal people, that's a charity box. To Otto, in one final act of brain death, it looked like the perfect escape pod. So he climbed in. And that's when his master plan hit one tiny flaw. Donation bins are designed for things to go in, not for idiots to come out. All this because one man looked at a squirt gun, a convenience store, and his own terrible future and thought, yeah, this feels promising. It did not. It was just a robbery so stupid it got defeated by a broom. And then by charity. Story 2. The frozen pipe blowtorch expert. Dennis was the kind of man who thought every household problem could be solved by making it hotter, louder, or both. Frozen pipe? Needs fire. Car won't start? Needs yelling. Anything requiring a licensed professional? Apparently an insult to his bloodline. It was the dead of winter, the kind of morning where your driveway sounds crunchy and your house makes little settling noises like it's emotionally tired. Dennis turned on the kitchen faucet and got nothing. No drip, no trickle, just silence. Somewhere inside the wall, a pipe had frozen. Now, normal people respond to that with one of three choices. Call a plumber, use a space heater carefully, or stand there panicking while Googling things with their mouth open. Dennis chose option 4, blowtorch. Because of course he did. See, Dennis had that specific Home Depot brain disease where owning tools makes a man think he also owns wisdom. He didn't see a plumbing issue. He saw a chance to handle it himself, which is male code for turning a $200 problem into a story your relatives tell for years. His wife asked the obvious question, "Shouldn't you call someone?" Dennis gave that little suburban laugh. That baby, relax laugh that has caused more insurance claims than weather and teenagers combined. It's just a frozen pipe. Right. And a shark is just a fish if you enjoy lying to yourself. So Dennis marched down into the crawl space with a flashlight, a blowtorch, and the confidence of a man who had learned all his thermal engineering from barbecue. Now, crawl spaces are already bad places for decision-making. Low ceiling, dry wood, dust, old insulation, spider energy. It's basically the worst room in America to start freelancing with open flame. Dennis, naturally, felt great. He found the pipe, squinted at it, and nodded like a doctor diagnosing a patient with needs fire. Then he lit the torch. Instant little blue flame, tiny dragon. The exact sort of thing that should make a person more cautious, not less. But caution had left town. He started heating the pipe, moving the torch back and forth like he was caramelizing creme brulee for Satan. And for one stupid little moment, it probably felt genius. The pipe thawed a bit. He could hear a little movement. Success. That's always how bad ideas trap men. They give them just enough early progress to make them smug. Then came the smell. That little uh-oh smell. Not pipe, not water, house. Because while Dennis was busy pretending to be the fire wizard of plumbing, the torch had introduced itself to everything around the pipe that absolutely did not need introducing. All this because he didn't want to call a plumber. Dennis looked at frozen water inside a wall and thought the answer was to crawl under his house with a flamethrower for dads. He wasn't fixing a pipe, he was just using fire to speedrun a much bigger bill. Story 3. The Yellowstone Hot Dog Wellness Genius. Herb was the kind of man who believed anything natural was automatically healthy. Raw honey? Healing. Mud bath? Healing. Boiling volcanic death water bubbling out of the earth with warning signs around it in 3 languages? Apparently also healing. That's how you get a grown man standing in Yellowstone National Park looking at a geyser and thinking, you know what this needs? Lunch. Now, most people go to Yellowstone and react correctly. They look at the steam, the weird colors, the bubbling death puddles, and say, wow, nature is incredible, while staying exactly where the boardwalk tells them to stay. Herb was not most people. Herb was one of those wellness pilgrims who saw danger signs as negativity with government funding. He had this whole earthy, spiritually overconfident thing going on. The type of guy who says toxins a lot without ever naming one. So when he saw a small geyser bubbling away, his brain didn't register scalding geothermal hazard. It registered organic cooking opportunity. His idea? Cook a hot dog in it. Not metaphorically, not as a joke. An actual hot dog, on an actual stick, in actual boiling earth rage. His wife told him not to. The park signs told him not to. The entire visible landscape looked like Satan's humid kitchen, and still somehow that wasn't enough. Because Herb had convinced himself this wasn't reckless, this was holistic. He was going to infuse his lunch with natural mineral energy, which is such a beautiful way to say, I'm about to let geology body slam me over processed meat. So over the barrier he went. That's always the part that kills me. There's a fence, there's a warning, there's a system, and then one man in hiking sandals decides he has personally been chosen to freestyle against it. He leaned over with his hot dog on a stick like some kind of deeply annoying wellness shaman at a county fair. For one stupid little second, it probably felt amazing. Like he'd hacked nature. Like he was the first man smart enough to realize the earth had invented sous vide. Then the geyser did what geysers do. Because they are not spas. They are not crock pots. They are underground pressure tantrums with timing issues. And when it erupted, it did not care one bit about Herb's lunch goals, his healing energy beliefs, or the absolutely tragic amount of confidence he had invested in a hot dog. All this because Herb wanted a spiritually upgraded snack. He looked at one of the most aggressively warned about places in America and thought the biggest missed opportunity was not cooking in it. He didn't get a healthier lunch. He just found out the Earth's cooking settings go a lot higher than his. Story 4. The Drone Retrieval Powerline Hero. Caleb was the kind of man who treated every minor inconvenience like a personal duel with the universe. Drone stuck in a tree? Annoying. Drone stuck on a power line? Apparently a chance to prove he was smarter than electricity. Now, normal people lose drones all the time. It's part of the hobby. Sometimes the wind catches it. Sometimes the battery dies. Sometimes the pilot is just spiritually unqualified. The grown-up response is usually one of 2 things. Call the utility company, or stare at it sadly and accept that the sky has repossessed your toy. Caleb chose option 3. Poke it with metal. Because of course he did. See, Caleb had that specific flavor of hardware store confidence where owning tools makes a man think he has diplomatic immunity from physics. He did not see a dangerous situation. He saw a retrieval mission, a rescue operation, a chance to get his expensive little flying camera back without having to admit defeat to a wire. His wife said, "Maybe call someone." Excellent advice. Mature. Boring. Correct. Caleb laughed. That awful little, "nah, I got it" laugh that has ruined more afternoons than weather and football combined. "It's not touching much," he said. "That is not how electricity works, Caleb. It is not a moody cat deciding whether to engage. It is very simple, very committed, and very uninterested in your confidence." So out he went to the yard with a long aluminum pole. Not wood, not fiberglass, not the safe kind. Aluminum. Because when a man is determined to make a bad idea unforgettable, he likes to add conductivity. There it was, his drone, dangling up there on the line like a smug little monument to his own pilot error. And honestly, this is what I love about guys like Caleb. At no point do they stop and think, maybe the thing stuck in the deadly place should simply remain in the deadly place. No, their ego gets involved. Now it's not about the drone. Now it's about winning. So Caleb raised the pole. Slowly at first, little adjustments, tiny pokes. He looked very serious, which is always funny when a grown man is standing in a backyard trying to outnegotiate the power grid with a metal stick. You could almost hear the internal narration. Steady, steady, almost got it. For one stupid little second, it probably felt possible. That's how bad ideas trap men. They give them just enough hope to keep going. So he lifted the pole higher and higher, until the whole thing crossed that invisible line where retrieval attempt becomes very expensive life lesson. All this because Caleb didn't want to lose a drone. He looked at a power line, one of the few things on Earth that genuinely does not need your input, and decided the missing ingredient was more Caleb. He wasn't recovering his equipment. He was just applying for immediate feedback from the electric company. Story 5. The One-Iron Lightning Guy. Frank was the kind of golfer who thought one good round made him spiritually bulletproof. Not lucky, not playing well, chosen. And that is already a dangerous mindset for a man holding a metal stick in an open field. It had been one of those rare afternoons where everything was finally going right for him. The drives were clean, the putts were falling. Even his annoying friend Bob had stopped offering tips like a divorced YouTube coach in khaki shorts. Frank was feeling amazing. Too amazing. The kind of amazing that makes a middle-aged man start talking like the universe is personally rooting for his swing. Then the weather turned. Dark clouds rolled in. Wind picked up. Thunder started grumbling in the distance, like God himself had opened the complaint department. Bob, to his credit, reacted like a mammal with survival instincts. "Maybe we should head in." Excellent suggestion. Mature. Sensible. Deeply uninteresting to a man currently 4 strokes from insufferable. Frank looked at the sky, looked at his scorecard, and decided weather was for quitters. Because golf does this to people. It takes an otherwise functional adult and turns him into someone willing to stand in the middle of an open field during a thunderstorm because he's finally dialed in. Then he made it worse. He pulled out his 1-iron. Now, for non-golf psychos, a 1-iron is already kind of a joke. It's the club people talk about like it was forged in a lab to punish confidence. Hard to hit, hard to trust. Basically the physical manifestation of golf saying, "You think you're special? Let's explore that." Frank loved that. He took a couple of practice swings, looked up at the sky with the full swagger of a man who had absolutely confused momentum with invincibility, and dropped the line. The line. The sentence that should have made the clouds stop and grin. "Relax," he said. "Even God can't hit a 1-iron." That is not a joke. That is a formal invitation. And the wild part is, he probably felt incredible saying it. Witty, legendary, like the king of the course. Like this was the story the boys would retell forever over beers. He was right about that part at least. So Frank steps up, raises the 1-iron high in the air, and for one glorious, unbelievably stupid second, becomes the tallest, shiniest, dumbest lightning rod on the entire golf course. Then the sky answered. Immediately. Violently. and with absolutely no sense of irony shortage. All this because Frank thought his golf joke was stronger than atmospheric electricity. He didn't get beaten by the weather, he got corrected by it. And in a purely technical sense, he was right. God didn't hit the one iron, he just used it as a highway. Story 6. The above-ground pool cannonball architect. Dustin was the kind of man who couldn't just jump into a pool. He had to improve it, complicate it, add engineering where God clearly intended splashing. Now, an above-ground pool is already a humble American object. It is not luxury. It is not architecture. It is basically a giant wet bucket in the yard where children scream and at least one uncle loses his sunglasses every summer. Normal people climb the ladder, ease themselves in, and enjoy not dying in 6 feet of blue plastic. Dustin was not normal people. Dustin wanted a cannonball to remember. Not a regular cannonball. Not the standard backyard belly flop lottery every man eventually loses. He wanted height, distance, drama. He wanted the sort of entry that would make his friends scream, the water explode, and his own brain briefly mistake applause for intelligence. So he built a launch ramp. That phrase alone should get a man visited by professionals. And by launch ramp, I mean he dragged a patio chair next to the pool, leaned a wooden board on it, braced the bottom on an old cooler, and stared at the setup like he had just reinvented physics for guys named Dustin. It was beautiful in the dumbest possible way. A folding chair, a plank, a cooler, and one grown man looking at this yard sale catapult like it was the missing chapter in human progress. His wife saw it and asked the only intelligent question available. Why? Strong question, clean question. Unfortunately, it was being addressed to a man who had already committed emotionally. "So I get more pop," he said. "No, Dustin. Pop is for soda. This is just backyard civil engineering for people with no future plan." His buddies, naturally, did not stop him. They did what American male friends always do when a terrible idea is ripening in full sun. They filmed. That's how you know the Republic is tired. So Dustin climbs up onto the chair, balances on the board, bounces once or twice to test it, which is hilarious because men always do that little fake safety ritual right before getting introduced to consequences. Like one tiny bounce somehow turns patio furniture into NASA. For one stupid little second, he probably felt like a genius. Then he jumped. And here's the problem with homemade launch ramps. They also have opinions. The chair slipped. The board kicked sideways. The cooler folded morally and structurally. And suddenly Dustin wasn't doing a cannonball. He was being alphabetized by lawn furniture on his way toward a pool that, moments earlier, had been the least dangerous thing in the yard. All this because he wanted a bigger splash. He didn't jump into a pool. He tried to turn an above-ground backyard bucket into an Olympic venue with a chair, a plank, and the confidence of a man who should never be allowed near both water and tools at the same time. Story 7. The overweight baggage human pressure cooker. Mr. Wang was the kind of man who treated airline fees like a hate crime. Not a charge, not a policy, a personal insult from the sky itself. Now, normal people at the airport go through the same 5 stages of baggage grief: denial, bargaining, quiet suffering, paying the fee, and then telling everybody the airline is evil. Mr. Wang got to stage 2 and decided money was no longer part of the conversation. He was going to beat the system. The problem was simple. His suitcase was too heavy. Not a little heavy, not maybe move a sweater to the carry-on heavy. This thing was apparently packed like he was relocating his bloodline. The check-in agent told him the fee, and you could see something dark and determined wake up inside him. A weaker man would have paid. A smarter man would have thrown out a pair of boots. Mr. Wang chose a third option, so aggressively stupid it almost deserves respect. He decided to wear the suitcase. Not metaphorically, literally. He marched off to the side of the terminal, opened the bag, and started dressing like a man trying to survive both winter and shame at the same time. 1 shirt, 2 shirts, 5 shirts, more shirts, then extra pants, then another coat, then another. By the end of it, he didn't look like a traveler. He looked like a department store had collapsed inward and formed a person. And that's what kills me about guys like this. They always think the system's weakness is paperwork, when really it's the human body. The airline didn't care if the clothes were in the suitcase or stapled to his torso. Physics did. His wife, or maybe just any sane witness within 50 feet, could have said, "Sir, you are turning yourself into a dumpling." But once a man decides he's going to beat a baggage fee with layers, he is no longer open to reason. He is a mission. A sweaty, waddling mission. And somehow, it worked. That's the evil genius of bad ideas. Sometimes they succeed just enough to keep going. The suitcase dropped under the limit. Mr. Wong, now dressed like a panic attack in cotton, made it through check-in and onto the plane. Victory. Triumph. A few dollars saved. The system defeated by one very stubborn laundry pile. Then the cabin warmed up. And suddenly, he wasn't a clever traveler anymore. He was a fully clothed slow cooker in economy class. All this because he didn't want to pay the baggage fee. He didn't outsmart the airline. He just turned himself into the world's angriest winter onion and discovered that sometimes the most expensive thing you can do is try way too hard to save money. Story 8. The ATM Tow Chain Mastermind. Ricky was the kind of man who watched one crime movie and immediately started thinking, honestly, I could do that. Dumber. Not smarter, not cleaner, dumber. He and his buddy Earl had cooked up a master plan that only sounds impressive if you've recently been hit in the head with a socket wrench. They were going to steal an ATM by chaining it to the back of a pickup truck and yanking it out like a loose tooth. That was the whole heist. No masks worth mentioning, no real planning, no understanding of how much an ATM actually weighs. Just a truck, a chain, and the deeply American belief that horsepower can solve crimes. Now, a normal criminal, already a low bar, would at least ask a few useful questions. Is the machine bolted down? Is the chain strong enough? Is the truck strong enough? Is this whole thing being attempted in front of 3 security cameras in a gas station hot dog roller? Ricky asked none of those questions. Because men like Ricky don't believe in details. They believe in momentum. If the engine sounds confident, that's basically a business plan. So there they were, in the middle of the night, backing the truck up to the ATM like 2 raccoons trying to rob a bank with farm equipment. Earl hopped out, wrapped the chain around the machine, and gave it that ceremonial little tug all idiots give before disaster. The universal male gesture that means, yep, this terrible idea is now spiritually attached. Ricky climbed into the driver's seat, grinning like a man about to become legend instead of evidence. Earl slapped the side of the truck. Go! And for one beautiful, stupid second, Ricky probably felt incredible. Engine roaring, tires spinning, chain tightening. In his head, this was the part in the movie where the machine comes flying free and everybody cheers while crime pays for exactly 6 minutes. Then reality clocked in. Because ATMs are not lawn chairs. They are heavy, bolted, deeply uncooperative boxes full of money and distrust. The truck lurched. The chain went tight. The ATM stayed put. And the only thing that actually moved the way Ricky wanted was the back end of his own truck, which jerked so violently it turned the whole operation into a live demonstration of why just yank it is not a legal strategy. All this because Ricky thought grand theft was basically towing with ambition. He didn't outsmart the bank. He didn't outsmart the machine. He just introduced a pickup truck to a problem far heavier than his own brain. Story 9. The skydiving cameraman without a parachute. Alex was the kind of professional who got so locked into the job, he occasionally forgot he was also a human being with requirements. Food, water, basic survival equipment, tiny things. He was a skydiving videographer, which already tells you 2 important facts. 1, he was very good at his job, and 2, his idea of workplace safety involved voluntarily leaving an airplane at 13,000 feet. Alex lived for the shot, the angle, the framing, the perfect floating close-up of someone else having the time of their life. And that was the problem, because when you get too good at documenting other people's adrenaline, apparently your own parachute can start feeling like a side quest. It was a routine jump. Good weather, happy group, everybody geared up and buzzing with excitement. Alex was doing what he always did, moving around the plane, checking his camera, getting those little pre-jump moments that make the footage feel cinematic. Nervous smiles, gloves tightening, thumbs up. He was in full director mode, not participant mode, not man currently inside plane mode, director mode. That's a dangerous state when your office is the sky. So the door opens, the jumpers go out, and Alex follows them, camera rolling, fully in the zone. And by all accounts, he crushed it. Beautiful shots, smooth flying, great framing. Everybody looked incredible. This man was out there filming like National Geographic for people with insurance waivers. Then came the end of the sequence. The others reached for their parachutes. Alex reached for his, and found absolutely nothing. That's the kind of moment no one wants in any context, but especially not while falling through open sky with a GoPro and a rapidly changing attitude toward priorities. Up until then, Alex had been a filmmaker, an artist, a guy capturing the magic. Now he was just a man discovering that he had, in a truly breathtaking act of professional commitment, remembered the camera and forgotten the part that lets the cameraman keep existing. All this because he got too focused on the shot. He didn't lose to bad weather. He didn't lose to bad gear. He lost because he was so committed to filming everybody else's safe landing that he forgot to bring one for himself. Story 10. The M80 Toilet Plumber. Gary was the kind of man who looked at a clogged toilet and thought, this feels like a fireworks problem, not a plumbing issue. Not a call the landlord issue, a fireworks issue. Now, a normal person with a clogged toilet tries a plunger, maybe a snake, maybe shame. Gary, however, had reached that very specific American male mindset where every household inconvenience starts sounding like a chance to test explosives near porcelain. And that is how civilization gets humbled in bathrooms. The toilet had been clogged for 2 days. Water rising, not draining, generally sitting there with the smug energy of a fixture that knows it has all the leverage. Gary hated that. Not because of the smell, not because it was unusable, because it was winning. His buddy mentioned an M80 as a joke. That should have been the end of it. But Gary was one of those men whose brain treats sarcasm like a product recommendation. The second he heard, bet that'd clear it, his eyes lit up with the exact same sparkle bad ideas get right before they become local news paragraphs. Now, let me say this as clearly as possible. A toilet is not a battlefield. It is not a pressure chamber for experimental American nonsense. It is a porcelain chair for consequences, and Gary was about to hand it a grenade. His girlfriend asked, "Why don't you just call a plumber?" Gary laughed, that little, baby, relaxed laugh that has caused more damage than termites and male podcasts combined. Because this'll be faster. Sure, Gary. So is driving through the front window instead of using the door. So into the bathroom he went, with one M80, one lighter, and the confidence of a man who had never once respected plumbing, explosives, or the beautiful possibility of simply leaving things alone. He dropped the firecracker in, lit it, and stepped back like he was conducting science instead of turning a bathroom into a ceramic revenge chamber. For one tiny second, I'm sure he felt like a genius. Then the toilet answered, and toilets, when insulted with explosives, do not answer quietly. All this because Gary didn't want to use a plunger. He didn't fix the toilet, he just gave indoor plumbing a reason to hate him personally. So tonight we watched one bargain bin robber lose to a broom, one DIY hero try to thaw a pipe with fire, one wellness goblin attempt to cook a hot dog in Yellowstone, and one drone genius challenged power lines with a metal pole. Then we got a golf philosopher who talked trash to the sky, a backyard engineer who turned an above-ground pool into a physics crime scene, a man who wore half his suitcase onto a plane, an ATM mastermind who thought stealing money was basically towing with confidence, a skydiving cameraman who brought the camera but forgot the living part, and finally Gary, the only plumber in America who looked at a clogged toilet and said, "This needs explosives." 10 people, 10 terrible ideas, and one shared religion. Nah, I got this. They did not. Now, I need a ruling. Who was the absolute king of weaponized stupidity tonight? The broom-defeated robber? The Yellowstone hot dog shaman? The one-iron lightning volunteer? Or the M80 bathroom engineer? Drop your top 3 dumbest legends in the comments. And while you're down there, tell me the dumbest thing you almost did before your last surviving brain cell tackled you and saved your whole bloodline. At the end of the day, Darwin Awards stories are never really about bad luck. They're about one tiny moment where a grown adult could have said, "You know what? Maybe not."